Welcome back to the United Stand. A big summer ahead, according to Ben Jacobs for Manchester United. The Luis Enrique potential deal, is that off the cards already? Has he said no to Manchester United, or is this simply a case that he doesn't want to leave PSG? We're going to delve into that, plus updates on United having a move for Bruno Guimarães, looking at two elite central midfield players as well. The left wing with Diamande and Anthony Gordon being mentioned as targets for us as well. Plus, I want to have a little talk ahead of tomorrow's game against Tottenham, which I think we are going to win in some style. Please like the video if you haven't done so already. Get it done at the start. It really helps the United Stand, really supports us massively in our endeavour to grow. And also, I will mention this again later in the show, but remember this Sunday, if you're a fan of the Super Bowl and the NFL, Mr. Goldbridge will be doing a live watch-along on That's Football for the Super Bowl. So make sure you're all there. Make sure you're all tuning in. It's going to be a great night. We all love a bit of Super Bowl. How is everyone tonight? Everyone well? Everybody good? I see a few people saying the volume's really low, but it doesn't appear to be my end. Most of you think it's okay. I'm looking at the numbers here. It seems all right. Let me know if you need it to be a little bit higher, if you want it to be a bit higher. It might be your earphones, to be honest with you. But I'll turn it up an extra decibel, and hopefully that is a little better. Hello, Terry. Thoughts on Ozil versus Bruno? In what regard? I mean, Ozil was just an absolute supreme football player, has won more major trophies in the game, and we can't discount that. I think he was better on the ball, but in terms of technically on the ball, both superb creators, I would say about the same level. Bruno, the superior goal scorer in that level. Both fantastic. Would I swap peak Ozil for peak Bruno? No, because I love Bruno. Simple as that. So that's a quick answer for you on that one. Look, there's loads to talk about today. There's loads to go through. I'm excited to sit here and talk about this today. But I want to start with the huge summer of spending that Manchester United may have at their disposal. And Goldbridge and I spoke about this on Tuesday on Hot Take. If you haven't watched Hot Take, by the way, Spotify is the best platform for it. Go check it out on Spotify right now. Just put in Mark Goldbridge Hot Take, Terry Flewers Hot Take. You'll find it on Spotify, very easy. Watch our podcast. And we spoke about this because it was the morning that the news from David Ornstein broke, which is that we will not be having a crazy summer. And people are entitled to react whichever way they want. But what I essentially saw was people going, we're going to have a really bad summer now. What do you mean we're not going to have a crazy summer? Where my first thought was, well, what do you consider a crazy summer to be? And is that what we need? And is it realistic? That was my first thought, was what does that even mean? And the most important person that should have been challenged on this was David Ornstein. Well, what do you mean by crazy, Mr. Ornstein? Because my version of crazy is spending 400 or 500 million. And I don't expect that. I really, really don't. The only reason Liverpool spent that amount of money is because they didn't spend the year before. Some people think crazy is 200, 250 million, but that's pretty much in the ballpark of what we spend most years anyway. So I thought it was a really interesting time for this, but Ben Jacobs spoke today right here on the United Stand, and for me what he said was very interesting. His words were, and I'll read them for you now verbatim, my expectation is that 2 elite midfielders will join, so will a left wing back, and or a left winger, and maybe a number 9 as well. Manchester United are prepared to go out and attack the market to the tune of in excess of 200 million, and maybe that number can be a whole lot higher if they get Champions League football as well. So it's a very different rhetoric from Ben Jacobs with an S on the end. And Ben was talking in the build-up to last season's summer window, or this season's summer window, but the summer of 2025, fairly similarly to a lot of the other journalists, which is United have about 100 or so million to play with, plus sales, and they're going to try to be as prudent and as thrifty with their money as they could possibly be. United always end up spending more than we tell the media. But this is very interesting that it's so much higher, in excess of 200 million. And this is what I want to hear. This is if we're saving money through cutbacks at the club, if we're now making a profit each quarter, I expect that money, unless you're paying the debt off, it's the only thing I would accept us spending money on which isn't players, is maybe the debt being reduced, but that would lead to more money in the longer term for players anyway. But we want to see players purchased. This is what we want. We want to see that money, our money, it's not their money, it's our money, spent on players in excess of 200 million. And if Michael Carrick and if these players continue to perform and we do make it into the Champions League, that could be a lot higher. Now, I like hearing this, not because I'll sit here and say, told you guys not to panic. Calm down, dear. It's not a commercial. Relax. We're going to have a big summer. It's not about those games. Now we have, I know it hasn't come directly from the mouth of Barada or the mouth of Jason Wilcox, but it's come from a journalist that I think you and I respect. Now, I'll bank it and say, okay, well, they're saying that. Ornstein said we're not going to have a crazy summer, but I don't understand his definition of crazy, and that was the most important question the journalist should have asked, and they didn't. The journalists always do a bad job in that regard. I'm going to bank it, and if we start seeing more and more credible reports like this, then what I do is I hold this as a benchmark for INEOS. You're telling me 2 elite central midfielders? Great. I can stomach not wasting money on Ndidi's, Conor Gallagher's, Loftus-Cheek's now if you bring me 2 elite midfielders in the summer. If you bring me in, as you say, maybe another number 9, if that's what the direction we go in, a top left winger, and we'll talk about some of these players in a moment. If we spend 300 million, if we're in the Champions League this is, and we invest that money into top quality players and we improve, then it shows and demonstrates there is a plan. It shows and demonstrates that for the first time in 13 years, at least that element of the club is operating in the right way. But it isn't about telling us what you're going to do. It's about the delivery of it. So I will stand on what I've said before. I don't want us wasting money on substandard players. I don't want us as fans setting a low bar to INEOS by saying, it's okay if you do this, it's okay if you do that. We did this with Ten Hag, and I say we, I didn't join in, but let's take responsibility collectively as a fan base. Let us going into INEOS. Please keep Ten Hag. Give him a chance after winning the FA Cup. Set us back almost 2 years, that decision has done. Let's let them run the club. What we should do is set the highest possible standards and always push for the right behaviours, the right methodologies, the right approach, the right spending. Because typically, if clubs operate in that way, they improve, they do better, and they have the possibility of winning major trophies. That, for me, is the right way forward. If we can't get them out, the second best option is to always push for the right behaviour. Not knee-jerk reactions, not panic buys, not underselling, not overbuying, not sentimental decisions. He won us an FA Cup, that means he's good enough. We can't ignore performances from managers. We have to focus on this. So it's a really good bit of news that's come out from Ben Jacobs, but don't get carried away with it. We have to hold INEOS to account based on this information that is coming out. Now the big question is, what do we do with that money? Let's jump into some of your super chats here. Emily says, it's a short window with the World Cup, so we will have to be efficient in negotiations. Would like to see outgoings done efficiently as well. Absolutely agree. It's not a shorter window, but it's obviously that month of the World Cup is hard to close deals in because players want to focus on it. So a lot of but this is what I would set as a standard. I don't expect all the business done before the World Cup. It's very hard in that 2 to 3 week window to get deals closed. So that's something I think we should, as a fan base, we should hold our ownership accountable. And I know you do that, Emily, brilliantly. But at the same time, we can't set unrealistic standards. We can't set sort of an approach which 90% of clubs won't achieve just so we can moan at the end of it, if that makes sense. And I want to see efficiency, but I'd rather wait an extra week for a signing, 2 weeks for a signing at the right price. I would rather us negotiate for longer and not be screwed over than bow down and just give teams what they want. Oh, we want 30 million for the player. This is us selling. Oh, in the end, okay, we'll accept 10 million. We only want to spend 30 million on this player, but in the end, we spend 35, 40 million on their terms. We've got to get better at doing that. Why, you may ask? Because if you burn the candle at both ends, what happens? But I absolutely agree. Efficiency and speed. I want to see an improvement on last year. Could not concur more with you on that. This here from Daniel says, hope you are well, Terry, and the United stand. Good to see you, mates. Yeah, very, very good, my friend, and loving being here again, talking to you all. Now, what's interesting about this news is some of the players that have been linked within it. I want to start with midfield, because the midfield, Ben Jacobs talks about 2 elite players. One of the players he spoke on today was Bruno Guimarães, where he says, with Bruno Guimarães, my understanding is there's kind of a verbal agreement in place that for 80 million for a Champions League club, Newcastle would engage. So I want to be very clear, Ben Jacobs isn't saying there's a buyout clause and isn't saying they've guaranteed an exit, but says would engage. Because I'm still told that if somebody is to move for Bruno Guimarães within England, it's more likely to be Man City than Man United. And City will likely be in the conversation for Elliot Anderson as well. Now, we're all going to have a preference on who we want these 2 elite midfielders to be. And you are going to hear all varying combinations of... I'm going to throw these combinations out in no particular order. But some are going to say Tonali and Anderson. Some will say Belieber and Wharton. Some will say Wharton and Guimarães. Some will say Guimarães and Belieber. Some will say Bruno Guimarães and Elliot Anderson. And so on and so forth. Stiller's name is going to be mentioned in these conversations too, amongst other central midfield players. But this is exactly what Man United need to be doing if we are serious. If we're going to bring in these elite midfielders. And I feel that's why what we need to do as a club between now and the end of the season, towards the team and Carrick, is put as much positive energy out there as possible. Some of the conversations I've seen this week, I feel, have been utterly crazy. I've seen some massive social media accounts post things like, don't get carried away with Michael Carrick. There's no way he can continue winning like this. I do agree. There's no way he can win 100% of his games forever. Right? Of course he's going to lose football matches, but we need to make sure we keep our calm, that we don't overreact, that we just encourage this team as best as possible, because Champions League qualification is going to make us more attractive. We're already attractive and got great pull, but more attractive, plus gives us more money to play with. And I think the more positive we are, the more encouraging we are, the better the opportunity there is for us to finish in one of those positions. Now, Bruno Guimarães is a player I really like, is a player I really rate, and I just feel he's a ready-made Premier League individual. And what's very interesting, and I think we did this exercise last week, 72% you, the United Stand community, decided, 72% you stated is the success rate thus far of INEOS when it comes to their signings. And what I thought was very, very interesting is, one, we're trusting the scouts now, because we saw in the summer when Ruben Amorim wanted Emi Martinez. We saw in the summer when he wanted Ollie Watkins over the likes of Šeško and over the likes of Lemains. United have removed the veto from their manager, meaning he doesn't get the final say on some of or all of the signings. The way United's structure is in place now, and I think it's the best way to ensure continuity at the club, is the scouts and the recruitment team put together the shortlist of players. The manager gets shown the shortlist and can pick from those players who all are meant to meet the threshold. Okay, the threshold of the... Sorry, I'm just looking at this comment here. Amid the threshold of being good enough to play for Manchester United. So I prefer this model because for years at this club, we haven't trusted the scouts. And you're all going to have stories of when we didn't listen to recruitment experts and scouts about players. And I think you can look at some brilliant midfielders. There are Erling Haaland. I know he was recommended to us by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but the scouts concurred. But the current manager didn't and had the veto and said no. And we need to move away from that model in 2026 as we're in now. There are no more Fergies, in my personal opinion. There are no more managers. I don't think managers even exist at the highest level anymore. We have head coaches, we have sporting directors, we have head of recruitments, and they all do their jobs individually. And we need to move into that 21st century. Now, hopefully over the course of time, you have a head coach who has been with you a long time, grows in support and power, but is in unison with the way you operate as a club, and it all works very well together. So I prefer this. And one thing I do like that INEOS are doing, and I think Man United moved too far away from this with our, especially with Ten Hag, but with a lot of our managers, is we're going out there and we're trying to buy the very best available from the Premier League. And this is something that Sir Alex Ferguson did with such excellence during his time at Manchester United, whether it was Eric Cantona, I know he was Division 1, but it's the same difference, whether it was Eric Cantona, whether it was Dwight York, whether it was Andy Cole, Teddy Sheringham, you've got Roy Keane that falls into that category as well, Rio Ferdinand, amongst others, Edwin van der Sar. Of course, there are players that come from the foreign leagues as well, the European leagues. You know, we signed David De Gea from Spain as an example, Jaap Stam as an example. So at no point do I think we should only shop in the Premier League, but I do feel there's like a double-edged sword in your favour when it comes to buying quality from the Premier League, is you weaken an opponent while strengthening yourself. So going after the Elliot Andersons, going after the Bruno Guimarães, I think is absolutely imperative for Manchester United's growth. I love this link, but to get this over the line, finishing in the Champions League positions, I think is going to be absolutely key for us. Let's jump to some of your comments here. This is from Mrs. Stone Jenny. Says, I just read the Glazers are buying a cricket team in India for $1 billion. Wow, they have cash now. Beware, Indians, don't let them in. They've always had cash. By the way, that probably won't be their money either. So how like most rich people operate, and I know this from my own experiences. Say I go to a wealthy person today and say, look, I'd love you to invest in the football terrace. Or if Mark goes to a wealthy person today and says, I'd love you to invest in the United Stand. So they go, oh, I'd love to, and we can put money in, employ more people, make the content better, etc., etc. Most of those wealthy people won't use their own money. They'll do one of two. They typically do one of two things. They borrow the money from a bank and secure it against their own cash, because the money they then make from their investment covers the cost, plus they can get the tax relief on the interest. So it's almost like free money. Or what they do is they then go out to their other rich friends and raise the money through venture capitalism. So when that money gets pumped in, it doesn't really belong to them, and they just give a percentage of it back to the investors at a later stage, which all comes out of the profits of the company. So the Glazers won't even be spending their own money now with this £1 billion. It may sound like it's their money, but it will be secured against something. It will be taken from somewhere else or raised elsewhere. So yeah, that's what they do. I agree with you. Beware of them, but I guarantee you they're not pumping their own money in. I guarantee you they are not pumping their own money in. This here from Eric said, don't fall for it again, Terry. Fall for what? Let's not pretend like we didn't buy quality players last year. There's nothing to fall for in this. I'm just telling you what we should do. I'm not saying I'm gullible. It's not about being gullible enough to believe it. It's about setting a standard. There is a dichotomy and a contrast in those two things. What I'm not going to sit here and do on the United Stand or on my channel, The Football Terrace, in case you watch it, go subscribe, big up. What I'm not going to do is say, we're getting Bruno Guimarães, watch. I told you all, INEOS are amazing, woo! What I'm saying is this is what credible journalists are telling us. These are the types of players I want. Here's the reason as to why. Let's push the club to do the right thing. Can you see a difference in those two approaches? So me talking about the right thing to do is no different to someone moaning that we won't do it. It's just I come at it from a different angle. Rather than moaning about the prospect of not doing it, I'll put my energy into saying this is why we should do it. And then if we don't, then I moan about things. That's just my way, and it's different. You might be different. You may look at it as, some people are different in life. They go, I'm going to moan about something I don't have until I have it. Where I push and strive to achieve something and stay positive about it until I either have it or don't. And then I have a sort of autopsy on why it worked or why it didn't. That's just my way of going about things, because I don't feel the need to be personally, and you do you. I'm not telling you how to behave. I'm just trying to make you understand that I see this the same as you. I'm not celebrating the signings before they've happened. I'm simply looking at this from the perspective that this is what we should do. And I think we should push out the right... I just like pushing out energy that way. That's me personally. Hope that makes sense, my friend. Jim here says, listening behind, you really think Bruno is in Ozil's class? I've got to stop listening, you guys. But that's not what I said, is it, Jim? See, what you've done there, it's called cognitive dissonance. You've heard something you didn't like. Your ears have stopped working. So what then what you hear is... You stop listening, you start typing, and you're not listening. I said Ozil, better with him technically on the ball. Both elite creators. I said Bruno's a better goal scorer. But what I stated is that what Ozil has won and achieved is bigger, and you can never discount that. And that's the truth. However, I said from a purely biased perspective, I wouldn't swap the two because I love Bruno. So telling you why I would pick Bruno is because I love him, because I'm being biased because he's a United player, shows you that I'm not giving you a complete footballing opinion. I'm giving you an emotional one. But it was stated. So I've said that Ozil was technically better and had a better career and achieved more. Creativity is amazing. The only thing I think Bruno is superior to him on is the goal scoring. That's it. And I think that's a fact. How that will upset you is beyond me. What I didn't say is that he's a better football player in any breath. So, 2 ears, 1 mouth, my old mate. But thank you for the super chat. Emily here says, I have a feeling this summer will be make or break for the current footballing model. With the expense of the stadium incoming, this is an opportunity for the squad build to stay in and around Europe. Emily, I think that's such a great point. I think you're very much nail on the head. If we get back into the Champions League and the recruitment is good, now let's paint a picture for the recruitment. Now, Jim, if you're watching, Jimbo, this is hypothetical. So don't, I mean, super chat all you want, but it's not a serious opinion. It's a hypothetical. So, for me, if we were to get Anderson and Baliba, because I like them too, I'll use them as an example, or Anderson and Guimarães, and we signed Diamande on the left, and we got, I don't know, a brilliant left back, as an example, and another striker. Who could the striker be? Who's the really good striker you guys want? You guys throw the name in. Go on, Jimbo, you tell us the name of the striker. My old pedigree chum. I'm going to wait for the comments to come up. I want to get a name of a striker. Give us a name, a good one. That's attainable. Don't say Isak. Don't say Haaland or Mbappe. Lukaku, Haaland. First two, Lukaku and Haaland. Oh, jeez. What's this fantasy football? Oh, what a weird comment. Kane. Could Kane be attainable? Endrick. I don't think he's that good. Come on, guys. Osimhen. Okay, let's say Victor Osimhen. That's a good one. There we go. Let's say we sign those players. Where I think Emily's comment holds a lot of truth and holds a lot of water is I feel that added to this squad with the right manager appointment, which we'll also get onto, we could potentially have 2 or 3 or 4 years in the Champions League. And as and when this stadium build starts, remaining in the Champions League is imperative. The only element I would challenge you on, Emily, is that the vast majority of the funding towards this stadium is going to be raised externally. And it will be raised partly through selling land. So the current area that the Old Trafford sits on, once the new stadium is built and we leave it, that will almost be... The way they'll do that is they'll sell that land and they'll sell that all that plot. the money will come through first to help build the stadium, and then once we've moved stadium, the people that have bought it will start their development in that area. There will also most certainly be naming rights to the stadium, which will be worth a hell of a lot of money, and the first period of that money will probably cover a large amount of the development. Now, depending upon what we do with the outside structure and shape, there is also money that can be raised, because what we may do is, you know how when you walk on the outside now of a shopping mall, you'll have restaurants and hairdressers and things on the outside. Like when I was a kid, everything was on the inside of a shopping mall, apart from the front shops. Now it's almost, when you go to like Westfield in Stratford, around the entire outside of the shopping centre are different shops and things. I think there's the potential for Man United to rent or sell those plots to people, or put them on long-term leases so people can put that's one of the reasons why I think they want the canopy. That way people can access it all year round, and there's always people at the stadium. Does that make sense? More people going into the shop. You know, they do skywalks and stadium tours, and all of it is about generating income, which I'm not against, by the way. We want to do these things. So a lot of the money to build the stadium, I don't think is going to come out of the general day-to-day revenues and running of the football club. Just looking, there might be some debt that goes into it, but let's see. I think United could raise a lot of those funds. Remember, Spurs have some debt because of their stadium. That's only because they haven't been able to find anybody yet that wants to do the naming rights and everything else. And as much as the stadium's brilliant, a great location, they're not Manchester United. Manchester United have a different pull. It's a different knock. But I think we'll be okay in that regard, if I'm being honest. Terry, would you like to knock Old Trafford down? No, I wouldn't. That being said, if you look at pictures of the stadium now, if you just like Google Old Trafford 1920, if you like search it and you look at the pictures and then you look at it now, it's not the same stadium. If you actually just Google now Old Trafford 1920, or let's put in 1926, or officially 100 years ago. I don't know if the pictures will change at all. Go to the images and look what Old Trafford looked like. It doesn't look the same at all, in my personal opinion. And why does that matter? Well, the reason that matters is if you redid the stadium again now, as we've done in the last 20, 30 years, if you just did that build in one go, it would be on the same plot, but it would look completely different. So essentially, to build it on the same plot, you've got to knock it down anyway, right? It's not... So White Hart Lane's on the same land, but they still had to knock it all down and rebuild it. So whatever we do, we're going to knock Old Trafford down anyway. You know, it's not like an extension where it's not like putting a conservatory on the side of it. We'd have to knock the majority of it down to rebuild it anyway. So, yeah, look, and as much as I love how it looks now, it could be modernized slightly. The stadium has changed its appearance so much in the last 140 years. That's why I look at it and go, well, I'm not going to cry about it changing its appearance again, because that logic dictates we should be angry we've changed it prior to that, because it's changed. Do you get where I'm coming from? That's why I'm not married to that idea. The location is important, and the name Old Trafford. Do you know what, Shah? It's going to be it's going to be within a hair's breadth. It isn't going to be moved to the other side of Manchester. It's not going to move like West Ham did. West Ham was in East Ham in East London, and then it moved to Stratford. There's a big difference in that. There's a big distance in that. To be honest with you, it's just 25-minute drive difference. I don't care if we sell the naming rights. Do you know why? Because it's always going to be called Old Trafford by me. I don't care that Sky will have to show it as the Apple Arena. I couldn't care less. I'm going to call it Old Trafford. If that money can be raised to help keep our team on top, which is what you want, I don't care, personally, because I'm just going to call it Old Trafford. You know? If right now somebody said, Terry, I'm going to buy your name off you for £1 million, great. My mum and dad are still going to call me Terry. My kids are still going to call me Daddy. Actually, my daughter calls me Terry for a laugh. Do you know what I mean? They're still going to use it. So I'll sell it. What does it matter? You can still just call me it. So, yeah, things like that don't bother me too much. Things like that just don't really bother me, irrespective of who the manager is. But yeah, look, the location is going to be if Old Trafford's here, the new stadium is going to be like there. It's going to be right next door to it. But as I say, if we were to knock the current one down and build a new one on the plot, you're still knocking this Old Trafford down. But the same as we've knocked loads of previous Old Traffords down and built this one. Logically speaking, it would be weird to get upset about this one whilst being very happy with keeping this one, which is a new version of the old thing that we also knocked down. Maybe that's just the way my mind works. But there we go. Terry, would you like... Oh, sorry, I already done that comment. I'm fine with Šeško and him getting used to the league. Yeah, Jim, do you know what? I'm liking Šeško in this, but this is why it says, when you listen to what Ben Jacobs stated earlier, and I'll read it again, he said, and maybe a number 9. We could get to the end of the season, and the club assesses and goes, right, Šeško's starting to purr. He's the main number 9. Cunha and Mbumo can play in that position, so we don't need to invest 60, 70 million in another out-and-out number 9. That might be the decision going in. We might go, right, let's get an extra midfielder. Let's get a left wing back and a right back. Maybe we go in a different direction. Maybe, though, Šeško only scores one more goal between now and the end of the season, and we're all sitting there, Jim, and saying, we really do need a new striker. So I think it's something that we should be agile with. And I feel, other than the midfielders, we should be very malleable and agile when it comes to who the other targets are, based on, one, where we finish in the league, and maybe more importantly, who the manager is. I will never use corporate names. Exactly, GB. So why does it matter? Why does it matter? Like, on a real one, I know some people go, it's soulless and this and that. Yeah, okay, but it isn't to me. Why? You know, Tottenham Stadium's not called, it's called the Tottenham Stadium. I still call it White Hart Lane. Every Spurs fan I know still says I'm going White Hart Lane. I know that Newcastle fans hated when it became the Sports Direct Arena. But you know what? Every Geordie still called it. They called it St James's Park. I still called it St James's Park. It doesn't really matter. And you know that when it comes to Champions League nights, they just have to put the original name on it anyway. You can't have the sponsorship name. Right? So, yeah, for me personally, it's... I mean, look, do Arsenal fans look lost as a fan base because their stadium's called the Emirates? Not really. Don't think so. It just is what it is. So, yeah. Well, there's a difference. They move location, but imagine if the Emirates airline just sponsored Highbury. They would all just call it Highbury still. It wouldn't matter. Doesn't matter to me. Like Gav says, it does matter. And look, I respect your opinion on that, Gav. You know, you see it differently to me. My view is, yeah, you can give me £1 million to put your logo on the stadium. Sorry, you can give me £1 billion to put your logo on the stadium. I'm still going to call it Old Trafford. And yeah, I just don't think it will make too big of an impact. What you also have to consider in these scenarios, though, is how many other clubs are doing it, and will you get left behind if you don't? So one of the great things Sir Alex Ferguson did for the club, he did something Sir Matt did, but on a greater scale. When he came in and was obviously rebuilding the youth academy and fixing the culture at the club and making the team better, he was also pushing for the ownership to expand the stadium, because Sir Alex's view was very, very similar to Sir Matt. Sir Matt, I want to say this was in the 50s. Sir Matt came back from the summer and had been in America and had been to some of the sports stadiums and seen that they had boxes, and said that we need to build boxes at the stadium at Old Trafford so that the more wealthier clientele will spend more money, which means more revenue, which means better players. Sir Alex also knew that if we could get Old Trafford to a point where we were having 20 to 30,000 more fans than any other team in England, that meant every single home game we were pulling away from those teams financially. Even though we didn't spend in the first 15 years of Fergie's time at United, we're only the 10th highest spenders. We had that money in reserve. We could pay the wages to keep the best players so they weren't being pulled away by the clubs, and it was all part of the planning. In that same breath, and celebrating, you know, knocking down parts of Old Trafford and rebuilding them to make more money, because that was the point. It was about money to keep building the team. If 95% of clubs are selling the naming rights to their stadium to generate more money, not doing it could leave us 100 million, 200 million pounds behind rivals who have more money than we do. So there is this element of, I understand the sentimentality behind it, But equally, Sir Alex wasn't worried about the sentimentality and the attachment to the old stadium when he was having it knocked down to build a bigger one to generate more money to take the club forward. So I just see it as a very similar scenario. I'm never going to call it by whatever the sponsor's name is. It's always going to be Old Trafford to me. So therefore, give me that money. It's money for nothing in my view. That's the way my heart sees it. But I respect your opinion, Gaz. I respect your opinion a lot. You're a good guy, very, very good guy. That's like saying if you change your wife, you'll call the new one by the last one's name. No, it isn't. It isn't. What it's like is saying to my wife, Mark Goldbridge has offered to sponsor us as a family, but you've got to change your name from Paula to Pete. But everyone's just going to call you Paula still, and we're going to get £1 million. Fucking take the money. Change it on Depot to Pete, but everyone's going to call you Paula anyway. It wouldn't bother me. It just wouldn't. If someone offered me now £10 million to change my name to Darth Vader on my passport, but everyone was just going to call me Terry anyway, I'd do it. I mean, Mark Goldbridge's name ain't Mark Goldbridge. We all know that, right? We all know the truth. So what does it matter? What does it matter? It's like a stage name for an actor. It just wouldn't bother me personally. So no, I hear you. But yeah, it's just, imagine someone said to me now, £10 million to be called Darth Vader. Yeah, I'd do it. Because that money changes my family's life. Oh, that's a shameless thing to do. Is it? Is it? But with my mum, I'm changing, that name you gave me? Yeah, I'm changing it to Darth Vader. Oh, son, why? I got given £10 million. The first thing my mum's saying is, how much you giving me, son? Maybe it's a working class thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, it just doesn't bother me. I just don't see it as that important. See, Gav, when you say it doesn't matter to me, money isn't everything. No, I do get where you're coming from. But, having money isn't everything. But it takes the sting out of being poor. Moving on. Managers. Do you hear what they said about Luis Enrique today? I'm going to do do you want the long bit or the short bit first? Do you want the in-depth long bit or the short part first? Let me know. Do you know what? The reason I use Darth Vader as an example, I worked with somebody that changed their name to Darth Vader. And he changed his signature to a Darth Vader hat and head. But we just wound him up. Because he got angry every day at work. We just called him by his old name. We just called him Darren. No one called him Darth Vader. Everyone called him Darren. Because we just thought, what a plonker. So just call him by his real name. So yeah, didn't matter, did it? Not for me. Do you want the long version? You want the long version. Now the short. We're going to go, the first word I saw was long, short. Well, the long version says this. This is on Luis Enrique. Now, what Ben Jacobs said is this. Behind the scenes, he can be quite pushy and insistent on it being his way. And he can push back against this wide collaboration and traditional models that have many voices. So if Manchester United were to go in that direction, this is for Luis Enrique, they would have to steal him away from PSG and would have to be sure he was a fit. And I'm not sure, with the model United are trying to build, that would necessarily see the PSG boss as the right fit. Unless, after all this turmoil and all this changing of minds, Dan Ashworth coming in and leaving, Amorim, Ten Hag coming and going, they turn around and go, the model is wrong. So what's essentially being said here is Luis Enrique wants a lot more control. If he's to leave PSG, he's going to want a lot more control of the club. And currently, Man United don't want to give a manager almost carte blanche again. Now, some of you are going to say, no, give him carte blanche, best available manager in the world, get it done. I agree in principle. But in reality, we need the sporting directors, the scouts, the people running the club, and our head coach and stroke manager to see things in unison. So it doesn't matter if you give him more power if you see football in the same way. If the squad that we have started building is what he wants at the same time. My fear is that we go in another new direction, because this is seen as fail before. Equally, someone that's very pushy, someone that maybe falls out with bosses, worries and scares me, because Man United are not fixed yet. Man United's squad isn't even as good as PSG's was when he came in. So how happy, how concerned, how pushy, how turbulent will it be over these next couple of years as Man United's squad is being built? And the reason I bring that up is we spoke about this last week, which is to say maybe the next head coach, stroke manager, has to be the guy before the best in class, as the squad is built out, as the cultural elements are still fixed, so that when a Luis Enrique-esque manager does join, he walks into a squad that we all, in consensus, say, amazing, ready to go. That's got to be a weighed-up decision by our board. Will someone like Luis Enrique, who is used to having the best, used to having everything sort of ready when he arrives and just adding a bit more quality in, will United be there in the summer for him? Is it, to quote the brilliant Barry Manilow, is it what you don't want is the right love at the wrong time? And that has to be a consideration. But the reason why I asked you whether you wanted the short version or the long version is what Ben Jacobs also said is on Luis Enrique, that it's completely fake news that he's available in the summer. Now, I know this for a fact. Ben Jacobs has serious contacts at PSG due to previous jobs and roles that he had. So if Luis Enrique isn't even available in the summer, if he's going to sign a new deal, we needn't waste our time. And that isn't to say that we shouldn't be seeking the very best managers in the world. But of course, there's no point chasing a dead end. There is no point chasing, in life you need a pipeline. You don't need a pipe dream. There's no point going after the pipe dream. So we have to reassess. And this is where Man United fans, and I've been saying it for a while, I think we have to start being more open-minded about who we're actually going to get as our next manager. Because I think in our head we're going, needs to be the best, as I'm going to lose it. One, we're not considering whether we're even ready for one of the best. Because sometimes you've got to build to that point. I don't think Liverpool would have been ready for Klopp as the first appointment under FSG. I think Dalglish coming in and settling the ship as they were fixing all the problems, then moving on to Rodgers, and then bringing in Klopp was the best thing for them. I think Pep would have been an horrendous choice for City after they sacked Mark Hughes, because the squad and the way the club was even operating back then was still 3, 4, 5 years behind where it needed to be the well-oiled machine for Pep to even want to be there, let alone get the success that he did out the club. So we have to, and the reason why I use those two examples is they're the two most recent examples of clubs being built to be ready for the best of the best. But it isn't as easy as just saying, let's go and get the best manager now. Because some of these guys that are at the elite end, they don't have any appetite to want to build something that from the burning ashes. They're very happy to come in and go, well, the foundations are done, the walls are up, the roof's half done, the windows are going in soon. Do you know what? I'm going to come in and finish this off and then add the interior. A lot of the elite managers are very happy to do that. With Man United right now, we'll see where we are at the end of the season, and let's see whether this is Michael Carrick doing a brilliant job or it's a bit of a new manager bounce. Right now, it's hard to know whether we've even got the foundations in. We might have the foundations in one wall, and you might find a Luis Enrique and a Hansi Flick look at it and go, just don't want to get my hands that dirty. And I think we have to be open-minded. Now, I know because a lot of us hate INEOS, the knee-jerk reaction is to go, they fouled, they couldn't land the right manager, screw them. But it isn't always as simple as that. You've got to listen to what's being said. at the same time, it might not even be the right choice for us right now. So this from Ben Jacobs saying that Luis Enrique, it's fake news that he's available in the summer, already makes me go, well, if he doesn't want to leave and he's going to sign a new deal, we as fans almost need to stop thinking about him, because we're going to end up creating a scenario where, because I don't think there's any other attainable manager in the world that's better than him. Which means if we set him as the benchmark, even though he's unattainable, we're just going to end up disappointed. At least in the short term. Now, again, you may see that differently to me, but I'm not going to waste any more energy on Luis Enrique. I'm not going to personally talk about him, because if he's not available, I don't know. You know that weirdo in Love Actually who was pining after his best friend's wife and he stood outside her house playing music, lifting up the cards? That's basically what you are if you're chasing Luis Enrique that doesn't want to leave PSG. It's a really weird thing to do. So, yeah, look, from my point of view and perspective, it's not good news. I'm not happy to read it. But look, I'm going to jump into the comments and see what you guys are saying about this. Hansi Flick, no way is he leaving Barca for us. But I don't think he'll leave Barca for me. This is exactly the point. You're so right. That's from Terpexy. Terpexy? How do you say that? I hate the @names. I used to like it when it was your actual usernames. I don't see Hansi Flick leaving Barcelona for Man United right now. If we had a world-class squad, already in title races, but wanted to go to the next level, of course. But right now, he wouldn't leave. I don't think he'd leave. Personally, I don't want Hansi Flick. That high line scares me in the Premier League. It really, really does. He's available. He just won't take the owners and Wilcox crap. But he isn't available, is he? I mean, this is what I'd say, Gavin. I've got a lot of respect for you, but there isn't a single media report other than Indy that has said he is available. Most are saying he wants to stay at PSG and sign a new deal. I'm not just going to discredit all of those journalists and go, nah, that's all spin from... Like, the French newspapers are doing Man United's PR for them by saying, no, he's not available. I disagree. This is why I don't agree. Because I think most newspapers love to attack Man United. And if he was available, but we just were saying, no, we don't want you, they would crucify us for it. So, and I don't think Ben Jacobs is going to lie about this to us. I don't think Ben Jacobs is going to be... If Ben Jacobs was told that by Man United, but was hearing different stories from other sources, he'd tell us, because he does that. It's exactly what Ben Jacobs does. Believe me, Carrick is better than Enrique. Now, I can't even finish reading that comment. Not open-minded, Terry. More like realistic. Under this board, I don't see us getting back to our best. And that's fair. That's a fair thing to think and feel. So, what does that mean about the next managerial appointment from your perspective? How are you going to handle that emotionally? Because if we're never getting back to the best, we're not landing Luis Enrique. So how do you see it? How do you see it going? We want a yes-man coach. Yes-man coach. Choices are Carrick, Poch, or Southgate. I'm keeping Carrick. Out of those three, I would keep Carrick, as things stand right now. We spoke about this before as well. Like, what is a yes-man coach? As much as I don't want someone who never pushes back privately, I also don't want to hire somebody who doesn't see our vision. Now, again, as much as fans are like, we've got to change our vision, Terry. Look, we can't even boycott the club to get the owners out, which is an easier thing to do than getting them to change their vision. Now, we won't do anything to stop the owners behaving the way they behave. So the best thing we can do is bring someone in that agrees with our approach. You know, like, as much as I know in an ideal world we want the ownership out, we want the best manager in the world. By the way, no manager, because you do realize that Luis Enrique doesn't run PSG, right? You do understand that the model that PSG have built, where they're going after really good young French players. They've kind of gone away from the Galactico model. You know that wasn't Luis Enrique that implemented that, right? So this is what I will say to you guys. This is where we shouldn't lie about these things and be honest. Luis Enrique doesn't run PSG. Do 20 minutes of research. They brought him in to coach the new direction they were going in. But a couple of years ago, the ownership, Campos and co., said we're going away from having Neymars and Messis and the like. We're lowering the... Ironically, they did the same thing we did. They've been lowering their wage bill dramatically. They've been aiming for lots of young and talented French and European players to build something as opposed to just trying to sign the superstars. They changed their model. Luis Enrique didn't change their model, like personally, but he was brought in to coach it. So this is why it could work with a Luis Enrique, but they have to believe in what we're doing. And you need the best manager available who believes in what you're doing. It doesn't work if the ownership, the CEO, and the sporting director say, we're going for young French players, we're not going after Galacticos, and we're going to play fast, expansive, beautiful football. And you hire a coach that says, I want to play slow, methodical football, and I only want the superstars. If you do that, it's going to fall apart. So as much as I get where you're coming from, Luis Enrique does not run PSG either. So this idea that he won't join us because he doesn't want to have like sporting directors, footballing directors telling him what to do, he already has that at PSG. He does not run the football club. This is a fact. And we have to start to be honest about these things. Manager-wise, we need an architect and a builder, not an interior designer at this point. So Tuchel maybe, even Poch at a push. I'm not a massive fan of Poch, but I agree with your overarching premise. And I think Tuchel could be a good choice, but Tuchel might want to stay at England. Tuchel might go, I'm staying as the England manager. So then what? But I do agree with you. I think we need an architect and a builder, but I actually think your architect and builder should be your sporting director, or footballing director, and your head coach. I think they're the two people that do that, and I think that but then there's elements that they both have a responsibility in the architecture and in the building. There's almost like a sort of yin and yang within that slightly. Well, not even that. There's an overlap because the head coach has got to architect and bring and essentially. No, he is the builder, really, because he has got to look at how the club want to play football and go, right, I'm going to coach this way to bring that to life. But we definitely need that, you're right. And I think I think a lot of these top coaches, they don't want to do that job anymore. I think a lot of these top coaches want to go in when the project is almost complete and then sort of finish it off. It's a really good point. It's got my brain whirring, that one. They backed his approach, Terry. That's the difference. I don't know what you mean. Who backed whose approach? The ownership of PSG backed Luis Enrique's approach. Yes, because it matched what they wanted. But the point I'm making is, you're saying that he won't join us because he doesn't want to operate in the way that Wilcock and the way that Berardo are running the club. But what are PSG doing that's overly different from Man United's approach? They lowered the wage bill. They started going after younger players while still buying some experience. We have said we want to play really nice, expansive football. They're not spending the same amounts of money as they were before. So my point is, I don't think the reason him not joining Man United is about Wilcox and Berardo. I think the reason he won't join Manchester United is because PSG are in a better position. They're purring right now. He's helped to get them where they are, and he wants to stay at their club. I don't think it's him. I don't think he's looking at Man United going, oh, God. I think he might look at us and go, you're 2 or 3 years behind from where I'd want to join from. But there's not a single report that has said that Luis Enrique doesn't want to operate under the Man United model. And I don't believe the English press love us and would protect us from that truth. They would come out and obliterate us with it. I just think it's a case of he's at PSG and doesn't want to be at Man United. There's nothing wrong in that. That doesn't bother me. That's kind of normal. Not many managers run football clubs anymore. Pep doesn't even run City. Exactly. So this idea that no one's going to join us because they're going to have a footballing director and a sporting director and a CEO tell them what to do, it's poppycock, in my personal opinion. Absolute poppycock. They might go, you guys see football differently from me, which is fair, but I don't think they're going to look at it and say, well, I don't want a sporting director and I want to be able to do it. I want a veto on the transfers, because most managers don't have that. We were the only freaks still. We were one of the only freaks still doing it, and it was killing us. It was ruining us. It really was. Couldn't give a crap what the media says, to be honest. They only print what sells. So, I mean, I get where you're coming from, Gav, that you say you don't care what the media says. But you certainly do. Because I've seen your comments in here before. If the media was to turn around and say United have walked away from Luis Enrique because he doesn't like Wilcox, I think you'd go, I told you. I think if the story doesn't, this is my opinion. If the story doesn't suit your view, you'll say it's nonsense. If it suits your view, you'll go, told ya. Where for me, I'm a little bit more open-minded. But what I do see is that the media are not nice to Man United. So if they're sort of more on our side, that tells me it probably went a lot better than we expected. Because those guys will come to burn and ruin us whenever they can. And if there was really a true story where we got laughed out the building by a head coach, they would print that in abundance. They'd print that in abundance. I really do think they would. There's a super chat here from Shahin. It says, we wonder why rich folk rule us if we're willing to give up anything for a little fund, as if Old Trafford isn't making enough revenue for us. See, this is the thing. I think you're seeing it all wrong, my friend, because it's not about wanting to give it up. And obviously, we had a bit of fun with it, right? Don't take what I said about changing my name too seriously. It was a joke. The point I'm making is I'd love to keep the name Old Trafford, always. But let me paint you this picture. And maybe you're happy. If I was to say to you, right, all the top clubs in England are generating £600 to £700 million a year each, but all but Man United are about to sign deals worth £1 billion for the next 6 years. So they're getting 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. Sorry, they're getting £1 billion, then they're going to get 180 million a year for the next 5 years. Extra revenue because they're selling the naming rights to their stadium. And if that meant that they all had much bigger transfer budgets, much bigger wage budgets, and we couldn't compete with them anymore, so we would fall away from the top. Let's just paint a hypothetical that we're in a really good position. You may be absolutely fine with this. Some people may not be. I would say we've got to follow suit to keep up with them. Because I want the club to keep winning. I understand some people would go, actually, I'm happy to come 6th or 7th. We haven't sold our soul. Fair. You're allowed to see it that way. But I feel that it's not about anything being up for sale. I think it's about doing whatever it takes to try and win. Now, where I'm not happy is if you sell the naming rights, we generate all this extra income, and that money isn't used on the squad. The money isn't used on the players. That money isn't used for better facilities for staff getting pay rises. That money is just taken out as dividends from the ownership. I'd go absolutely crazy. But for me, when I talk about selling the naming rights, it's a case of, if someone said to me now, Terry, it's going to cost the club £1 billion over the next 15 years to build a stadium, or they can sell the naming rights and it's not a penny cost to the club, which means everybody's jobs are secure. You can still buy the players that you need in the transfer market. I'm going to go with that option because I think it's better for the club overall. I don't look at that as selling your soul. I look at it as protecting the football club. But I do see that you see it differently, and I respect that. But for me personally, I think we'd have to do it in that scenario. How can you follow suit if you have someone running the show who's useless? Again, but we're talking in hypotheticals here. We're talking, the one thing I would say about Manchester United, in terms of the commercial deals we've done in the last 13 years, they haven't been bad. Let's be absolutely honest about it. Thank you, Shahin. Yeah, I do think my opinion there was fair, and I do get where you're coming from. I just think sometimes it's why we're doing it. When the St James's Park becomes Sports Direct Stadium, I still think the biggest reason that the Newcastle fans were upset is because they weren't getting any extra money for it. It wasn't as if there was an extra £100 million a year being pumped into the club to make the squad better. They just did the naming rights because they own the club, and there was no extra money coming in as well. Equally, what would you say to this? Let me paint you another hypothetical. What if they said we're going to sell the naming rights to the stadium for £2 billion, but what that means is that the current cost of ticket prices, the current cost of season tickets, gets reduced by 50%. Would you then say it's worth doing it because the average fan then saves money? So I'm just painting you hypotheticals here because I want to ascertain how important the name is. It don't change the name for zero reason ever, or are there times when you would? I want to just try and understand where in that spectrum you sit, just for hypothetical sake. Not protecting the club, they are protecting themselves, don't care about the club in general. I don't think anyone running Man United, well, not anyone, but I don't think a lot of them care about the club like we the fans do. But do I think Barada and Wilcox and these guys want to do a good job? Yeah, I do. I do think they want to do a good job, personally. You know, I don't think they're in there going to spend this money. If it goes wrong and United goes out of business, I don't care. I don't necessarily think that's how they feel personally. Doesn't mean I think they're doing a good job, but I don't think they have zero care. But do they care like you and me do? Absolutely not. That's exactly what would happen. It's the Glazers. What you mean? They'd just take the money as dividends? No, listen, I understand that. And then I'd be against it. But the problem is, I'm not against something before I can't sit there and go, don't sell the naming rights. Why? Just in case the Glazers take some of the money. Because they might not, and then you're behind your rivals in the hypotheticals that we painted, but I get you. I want to talk about tomorrow's game as well before we go, though. Really, Terry, that is crazy. What's crazy? I don't think Barada goes to work every day and thinks, I don't care if United crashes and burns. I don't think he's that. I don't think there's zero care. There's a difference between being incompetent and being evil. Do I think they sit there and couldn't care less what happens? No. Because I just don't believe that. Do I think they've done a bad job so far? Absolutely. It's completely plausible they might not be competent to do this job, but I've seen no evidence that tells me that they don't. They because remember the example I gave. I have seen no evidence that suggests they wouldn't care less if United went into administration tomorrow. I haven't seen any evidence of that. Show me the evidence and I'll change my mind. But I'm not just gonna cast aspersions like that because I don't like someone. I don't think that's the right thing to personally do. Tomorrow's game, how do you all feel about it? I haven't got long left, but I just wanted to say, I think we're winning tomorrow, and I think we're winning 3-1. I think it's going to be a very, very good day for Manchester United tomorrow. What do you all think? What do you think? I'm going 3-1 Manchester United. I'd love to get your opinions on this. I'd love to get your views on this, people. I really, really would. How do you see it going? A few people saying draws in the comments. I'm going 3-1 United. Oh, Leeds are winning 2-0 tonight. Mad. Premier League is crazy. They're so close to relegation. Wow. Spurs, man, they can get dragged down even lower in the next few games if we beat them tomorrow. 8-0 United, Samuel. What have you been eating today or smoking? What are you doing? Gav says 2-1 win. Yeah, I'd love that, Gav. Well, listen, I want to win. Win's the most important thing. A good performance would be even better. A thrashing would make it perfect, especially as it's a 12 o'clock game, because we have the game and then we can sit back and enjoy the rest of the football over the weekend. It'll be amazing. Look, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in as ever on a Friday. This is going to redirect you over to That's Football, where Mark is live with the Bundesliga, to get yourselves across there. Remember as well, Super Bowl Sunday, Mark will be live doing That's Football, so get yourselves across to that as well. Get yourselves ready for that. It's going to be an amazing night. Until next time, take care, goodbye, God bless, and I'll